Calling to order the regular meeting of the Wheeling Plan Commission for Wednesday, April 26th, 2023. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Casper.
Present.
Commissioner Heiken.
Here.
Commissioner Berkey.
Absent with prior.
Commissioner Berkey is absent with prior notice. Commissioner Sprague is here. Commissioner Riles absent with previous notice. Commissioner Meyer.
Here.
Chairman Johnson.
Here. Get your mic down. Ms. Nyes, any changes to the agenda this evening?
No changes.
Citizens' concerns and comments? I don't believe we had anybody sign up. We have no consent items tonight, so we'll move right into the items for review. Docket PC 23-04, request for appearance approval to permit to paint facade on building for Hakimi Brother Investments, 82 to 106 East Dundee Road. Ms. Nyes?
I'll just give a brief introduction before the petitioner comes up. So the petitioner is here for appearance review only because they have painted the ephes on the front of the building here. They've painted it dark gray. It used to be like a tan color. And they are now here to get approval for that facade change. And then also they would like to paint all four sides of the brick on the building gray, a lighter gray. So it's shown in this rendering, the ephes is the dark gray and the brick and stone are the lighter gray. Here's the west facade, and I believe this is the north facade. The issues that staff had were that now the backer panel for Love to Smoke and the raceway for Digicel now don't match because these were both made to match the tan background. So we've proposed a condition around that the backer panels need to be painted to match the new facade at the owner's expense. And staff is also not recommending that the brick be painted. That's it.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here?
Yes.
Come on up. State your name and business address for the record, please.
Sure. David Hakimi, and the business address is 5 South Wabash, Chicago, Illinois. And so, good evening, and thanks for fitting us in tonight. So basically, what we were trying to accomplish is to modernize the building. A few years back, we did some tuck pointing and redid the columns and the facade. So now we're at the point where we'd like to, like I said, modernize the building and change the appearance. So I apologize, there was a miscommunication. We already obviously went ahead and started painting. The new tenant, the furniture store, was told by the village to paint prior to putting up the new sign. We obviously misinterpreted that. They wanted us to paint the original color, but like I said, our plan was to modernize the building. So we went ahead and did this charcoal gray at the top, and then we want to continue to paint a lighter gray, the rest of the exposed brick in the front, both sides of the building and the rear of the building.
Okay, anything else?
That's it, yeah.
All right, well, we can go right to the commission then. Commissioner Casper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, gentlemen. I just want to voice my concern raised by staff that they prefer not to have the brick painted. That's my only issue.
Not to paint it.
Commissioner Heiken.
I'm on the same thing. I like the way the building looks now, as well as the pictures that you sent of what it would look like, it's very hard to make a decision.
It's not a clear,
Right,
Right,
it's just
right.
a rendering.
just a rendering.
I'm in favor of the way that it looks now. Thank you, that's all I have.
Commissioner Sprague.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
I was a little skeptical also about painting the brick. It's always an issue as far as how long the paint will last on brick. But after looking at the building and the mixture of different bricks and the patches, I think it might look better actually painted than the way it does now. You're not planning on painting the stones at all?
No,
No. And, sorry to interrupt, when I say paint, we mean stain. So the brick will be able to breathe. So I personally did it to my house, and it's supposed to last 40, 50 years before you have to redo it. So it doesn't prevent water getting to the brick can still breathe. So I don't know if that was the main cause initially. It's not really a paint, it's a stain.
Okay. All
Last.
right. And will you be performing all the necessary prep work before you do that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was a little surprised that, the painting started before the commission approval. I appreciate your apology. Thank you very much. I do have some concerns just about your building aesthetic. I do appreciate you trying to modernize the property. Thank you for that. I am not familiar with this stain application that you've talked about, and just echoing the comments of my fellow commissioners, it is hard to envision exactly what that might look like given the rendering. So at this point in time, just given the fact that painting brick is contrary to our guidelines, I would have a hard time supporting this request.
Sure.
Thank you.
And now that you're mentioning stain instead of paint, I guess I'm kind of torn because definitely don't like painting brick, although we have allowed it in some locations.
Sure.
I assume you're talking about getting it professionally done.
Yes, absolutely.
Of course,
Yeah.
right.
And the other big part of it is tuck pointing as well. The front of the building, especially the lower level of the bricks, are completely deteriorated. So that's what prompted this whole painting too. We wanted to take care of that, and obviously enhance the building from falling apart, but also give it more curb appeal.
I wish we had more information on the staining process. Sir, did you have something?
I could add my 2 cents.
Well, come on up. We need all the sense we have. Just state your name and business address, please.
My name's Craig Mariner. I'm a village resident for 26 years. I'm a civil engineer by profession. I've been involved in the construction industry most of my career. I work for federal government, private industry, architectural firms. The stain has some benefits. 2 comments that I'd like to make is if tuck pointing occurs, that needs to be allowed plenty of time to cure before any stain is put on it. And your concern is the color, maybe a sample section in a non-exposed area could be performed, although that might impact their costs, so, but maybe a sample section could be done 3 foot by 3, whatever, to make it. Looking at those photos from an architectural perspective does not look very good, but there is a concern with paint on brick, particularly if that brick has heat on the inside of it, and depending on the construction of the walls and the vapor barriers and so on. So, but, just from their point of view, possibly to overcome this, absolutely any tuck pointing would need to be cured, prior, but, maybe a sample section. So that's all I can add to
Thank
that
you.
is maybe a way to proceed from your perspective.
Thank you.
again, I don't know the particular material like they stated, and maybe there's a submittal process for that, for the staff to review.
Thank you for your input.
Anthony of 2212 Division. I am a developer, architect, general contractor, and I can concur with the ability of stain. It's usually a 4 to 6 part process, depending on that color tone that you wish to achieve. I've done it on my own residence and as a means of the stain, different from painting, the peeling and the flaking. But the stain process is usually after it is properly tuck pointed, allowed to breathe. They do an acid wash, and as a means that just gets up all the dirt and grime over the years. And then through the stain process of just going over it and over it, as usually 4 to 6 times to get that white, it really comes out sharp. So I would just like to give that to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well,
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I've seen many buildings, shopping centers around the city area, and they all have the stains, and I never had any issues. And we thought it would just make it more presentable, nicer, and like you said, the main thing I wanted to cover different color of bricks on the side of the building, which looks really awful and really bothers me myself, and I really wanted to do it, so.
I have another question when you're done.
go ahead, Commissioner.
Do you have any problems with changing the signs in the front, the backs of the signs,
If it's,
to match what you've done?
no, if it's, we have to, look into see what kind of material it is as far as what paint to use. Obviously, we can't use the same stain on the brick, but,
Right.
yeah, assuming that it is paintable, yeah, we would be okay with that.
Okay.
And is the dark gray portion you've done already, is that complete? Because it's
Yes.
a little blotchy looking still. I don't know if you were adding another coat on there.
We could add another coat, yeah.
I would recommend it.
Yeah. How does the commission feel about holding off on the staining part until they can provide a sample?
I think that would be advisable. I would be very amenable to either seeing a sample or some small portion for further evaluation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Commissioner Sprague?
Sure.
Commissioner Heiken and Casper?
I agree. Yeah, I'd like to see a better picture of it. If you're not going to do something on the side of the wall, a better picture,
Okay,
make a better decision.
we could do that.
Do some sample of the back.
So, where does that leave us, Ms. Nines?
We can continue it.
Continue it until such time?
Yes, it's May 3rd, maybe?
Would you be able to do something by
By May, I believe, it's the
First week
first,
of May?
or the second, no, it's the second,
second week of?
so not May.
That's next
The
week.
10th.
Yeah, May 10th, that is
May
it.
10th.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. So we need a motion to continue this one?
So moved.
Second,
Heikenmeyer?
Heiken and Meyer?
Commissioner Heiken?
Yes.
Commissioner Meyer?
yes.
Commissioner Casper?
Yes?
Commissioner Sprague is a yes. Chairman Johnson?
Yes. And then see what you can do as far as those sign backings?
Yes, yeah, we'll look into that.
Okay,
So just to be clear, you guys want to see a sample of the lighter gray stain on the building, just a small
yes,
section, correct?
somewhere that,
Okay,
in case it doesn't work out.
right, yeah. Probably do that in the back of the property.
Okay,
If I may, if you can't do it on the side of the building, a better picture of what that would look like. The ones you presented don't really do it any justice.
Okay, yeah, I can work on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
and you weren't doing the stone columns like in between the doors?
Right here.
Over there?
We're not painting those.
No, the stones were going to stay.
Just,
Yes,
so just the red brick?
Yes,
Okay. All right. So we have a better understanding then?
perfect.
Thank you. We'll
Thank you for the
see you
time.
next time.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right. Next up, we have a public hearing for requests for special, docket number 2023-16, request for special use to permit an animal boarding and training facility for Waggles Enrichment Center at 530 West Hintz. Mr. Secretary.
Ross Niehaus, Waggles Pet Resort leasee is seeking special use approval pursuant to Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19-07, Industrial Districts, Chapter 19.10, Use Regulations and associated sections in order to permit an animal boarding and training facility located at 530 West Hintz Road, which is zoned I-1 Light Industrial and Office. A special use is defined in the zoning code as a use of parcel of land that requires review and consideration before approval due to the potential for negative impacts on surrounding properties. In order to be considered for a special use, the petitioner is required to demonstrate through testimony to the Plan Commission at a public hearing that the request meets the standards of the village code, including but not limited to how the proposed use will not damage the enjoyment or use of the surrounding properties. Prior to the public hearing, the petitioner provides written statements meant to show that the request meets the standards for special use as established in Title 19. The Commission chairperson will typically direct that these statements be entered into the record without a full reading of them at the hearing. Based upon the testimony and supporting material submitted, the Plan Commission will make findings in support of or against the petitioner's testimony and report those findings to the village board.
Thank you. Ms. Nyes.
Just as a brief recap, Waggles does have a special use for a animal training and boarding facility at their main facility at 419 Harvester Court. And then they did recently get another special use for just a training facility at 500 Hintz, which is just next door to this new facility at 530 Hintz. And in their letter, they did state that they were going to be shuttling the dogs to and from this site, from the main site. So we do have a condition recommended that there shall be no customer drop-off or pickup of pets at the subject site. All customer drop-off and pickup for any operations by the petitioner shall only occur at 419 Harvester Court. And the next item on the agenda is the site plan for this same facility. So what we'll do the special use first and then the site plan.
All right. This is a public hearing and I need to swear you in. So do you swear the testimony you're giving tonight to be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. State your name and business address, please.
Ross Niehaus, 419 Harvester Court, Wheeling, Illinois, 60090.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Nice to be here again. As you may recall, a few years ago, we applied for a special use to do animal boarding and daycare at 419 Harvester, and thankfully we found people who needed that service, and so we returned less than a year ago to ask for special use to open a training center. It's just a few blocks away on Hintz Road. Thankfully, there's been a need for that as well. What we've learned is in our main facility, it made a lot of sense to work with group dogs only. When we first opened, we were able to serve dogs that wanted to play with other dogs in a group, and also dogs that didn't like playing in a group, but preferred one-on-one time with a staff member. We grew to the point where there were so many dogs who wanted to play in a group, we had to focus on that part of the business. And that left a whole population of dogs that required care and services that we couldn't provide. And part of the reason it made sense to do group dogs in our current space is just because of the way it's laid out. And we said if we really want to work with these one-on-one dogs, we need more space, and we need to kind of build it out a little differently. And we need to kind of separate them from the group dogs. The non-group play dogs we're talking about are dogs that are there maybe just a little bit shy or fearful, or maybe friendly with one or two dogs but not socialized enough to play with a large group. And there's many dogs that simply just don't like interacting with other dogs. You could throw them into a group, but they're going to sit there and be kind of bored and not want to, would prefer the company of a human. And those are the types of dogs that we'd like to serve, and there are many of them. And so we want to build out this space special for them. What we are not asking to serve are aggressive dogs, dogs that are aggressive towards other dogs or towards people. That would require an even different configuration that perhaps one day in the future we'll figure out a way to do it, but that's not what we're looking to do now. These are dogs that are not aggressive, are not dangerous, but still need this one-on-one care. And so the angle we're taking is creating an enrichment center for them. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of games and activities you can play with dogs that are truly enriching for them. They appeal to their innate instincts and sensibilities, chasing, smelling, scavenging, herding, and we've got lists and lists, and we're actually developing a special curriculum to kind of test these dogs with some of these games, see what they tend towards and what they prefer. And so we will be boarding these dogs and giving them these specialized activities. So they're referred to as enrichment activities, so this will be our enrichment center. It is right next to our training center, so we'll put a door, and it will kind of be thought of a training and enrichment center. And then there's some interesting synergies between that, because as our enrichment program gets more sophisticated and our trainers, as that program develops, we can eventually start doing higher level types of enrichment activities once we have the staff and develop the programs to the point. So it's a lot of fun for us. I think we could grow it in fun ways. We're starting with kind of this base idea of what we want to do, but we want it to grow, we want it to develop, and there's all sorts of interesting ways we could go. We are asking to start to board these dogs at our current facility, 419 Harvester, and then just bring them over to this space during the day. We're going to make different play areas, and we'll be using internal dividers, so if we ever want to change the configuration, because we think it would make more sense for a certain activity, that will be available. We are proposing to add an outside play yard, and so the dogs will sleep at our main facility in Harvester Court, and then we'll drive them over during the day, which is what we do for our training dogs. They'll get their enrichment activities, return to the main facility for feedings. That's where the check-in and check-outs occur for bathing, and most of the potty breaks that we are asking to have an outdoor play area here too for potty breaks. It is our hope that this program will become popular, and at that time we would then we would still check the dogs in and out at our main facility, but we would bus them over and then board them for nights at a time, however long their stay is, and then bus them back to our main facility the day of their checkout. So all customer traffic would still stay at the main facility, although I do expect some customers would ask for a tour of this new space, so that wouldn't be a lot, but there would be occasional customers wanting to come and take a look. So thank you very much for your consideration.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing, so if anyone's here to discuss this, I see nobody, so we'll go right to the commission, and we'll start with Commissioner Meyer this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do not have any questions. Thank you for your thorough submission.
Commissioner Sprague.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's great that you're doing well and want to expand. I have no questions.
Okay. Commissioner Heiken.
Yeah, same thing. I'm glad to see you're doing very well, and I have no question.
Commissioner Casper.
No questions, thank you.
All right. So is this a business on its own, the enrichment center, or?
It is not. It's all one business. We kind of think of this as a second campus to our main facility.
So as far as business license, it would all fall under one?
Well, do you have a business license for the 500 location?
We do.
Yeah, so this would probably just fall in with that one. Maybe they would just update the address. Yeah.
Okay. As far as boarding, you're not looking at doing that right now, but you'd like the approval to do it at some point?
That's correct.
Is the commission okay with boarding at some point?
I'm fine with it.
Yep.
No objection.
Okay.
How many dogs are you thinking you would be boarding at a time?
Obviously, we'd start small. If we can get 4, 5, 6 dogs, that would be great to get us off the ground. I think, depending how we build out the space, you could fit around 50.
That many?
We call them suites, but kennels.
Yeah.
Yeah. The space would allow for it.
Mm-hmm.
While still having large play areas.
And you would have staff on hand then 24 hours, or?
We staff till pretty late in the night and come back early, but overnight, we'll have cameras and the building sprinklered with a fire alarm connected to the fire department, which is how we
In
run.
case the dogs start a fire?
And that's how we operate currently, too.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. All right, if there's no other questions, fire department, anything on this?
No, as long as the dogs aren't smoking in there, we're okay.
We'll keep a close eye.
All right, if no other questions, motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Meyer and Heiken? Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Heiken?
Yes.
Commissioner Casper?
Yes?
Commissioner Sprague is a yes. Chairman Johnson?
Yes. And you were okay with that condition for now, that all the pickups and drop-offs are at Harvester?
Yes, absolutely.
Because if that changes down the road, you would have to come back, I think, to take another look at the parking.
Sure.
Because it's not, there's not that much over there, with Apollo taking up a lot of spaces. All right, so moving on to docket.
No, you gotta close.
Oh, yes.
To close.
Motion to close.
So moved.
Second. Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Sprague is a yes. Commissioner Casper?
Yes?
Commissioner Heiken?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes, sorry about that. All right, now we have PC 23-05, request for minor site plan and appearance approval for improvements associated with animal training and boarding facility at 530 West Hintz. Marcy?
Staff just had two proposed conditions. The first one was exterior lighting fixture specification shall be included with an application for building permit, which shall be similar to the existing building mounted light fixtures and be installed above the exit door on the north side of the building leading to the outdoor fenced area, as well as the west building facade to illuminate the outdoor fenced area. And number two, all fencing, landscaping, and exterior lighting shall be installed prior to the issuance of a business license. Well, there's our business license.
Yeah.
Well, it would
Okay.
just be the modification, business license.
But then, did we not talk about having a date deadline on the landscaping and stuff?
Well, that would be instead of the business license
Right.
date when we talked. So it would be one or the other.
But they already have a business license.
Well, they have a business license for, it would be before they could begin operation in this portion of the building.
Okay, so should it be
So-
worded that way then, before operations can begin?
Sure, because I mean, until the business license is amended, they really don't have approval to work in this part of the building.
Okay.
Because it is a new portion of the building, fire and building would still go out there
Yeah.
to look at it. So it still has to be looked at.
Okay. So you want to leave it?
So I'm
leave it
good
alone?
how it
Okay,
is.
that's fine. And you're okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll check in with the commission again. Commissioner Casper, anything on the site plan?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Heiken? No. Commissioner Sprague?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I got a couple concerns. One, noise from the outdoor area. There's a home 50 feet to the west of that spot. What are you planning to do to mitigate the noise that may travel that way?
Sure. Because this is mostly going to be individual play, or if siblings from the same house are together, it's going to only be one or two dogs at a time. So I would expect there to be very little barking. It's not like a group of dogs like currently where you would hear more of that. And there's going to be this one outside play space, but there's going to be several inside. So if a dog is particularly problematic, we can keep them inside except for perhaps a quick potty break.
Okay, thank you. The only other concern I have is staff is recommending a light on the west side there. That also, I'm concerned about light permeating into the backyard or the home to the west there also. If you do install a light on the west side, can it be something that faces more down towards the ground versus out into the lot?
Sure, we were going to install similar to what's currently on the building, which is angled downward.
Okay.
But we'll be conscious of that as we make the installation.
Great, thank you very much, that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Meyer?
I just have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. One is, from the exit door, exactly where will be the fence?
So, yep, the exit door is in the back of the building.
Right.
Yep. So the gate will be, we will have to go outside and just do a little U-turn around.
Okay, so will the dogs be on a leash as
Yes,
they're coming
absolutely.
out? Okay, thank you. That answers a key question. And then the other thing, just noticing, coming out of that back exit door, there's some deteriorating pavement there by that loading dock. Is that something that you plan to repair?
I haven't discussed that with the landlord. I'd be happy to bring it up with him. I certainly see what you're referring to.
Yeah, there's kind of that lip to step up, and then to the left of that, you can see where some of that pavement started to deteriorate, especially where that metal railing is.
So I'd have to talk to the landlord. It's not clear kind of whose responsibility that is, but I'd be happy to bring that up with him.
Okay, fair enough. That's all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and I think all my questions were answered. Marcy, you want to read the conditions once more before we vote?
Sure. Number 1, exterior lighting fixture specification shall be included with an application for building permit, which shall be similar to the existing building-mounted light fixtures and be installed above the exit door on the north side of the building leading to the outdoor fenced area, as well as the west building facade to illuminate the outdoor fenced area. Number 2, all fencing, landscaping, and exterior lighting shall be installed prior to the issuance of a business license.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Casper.
Meyer and Casper. Commissioner Meyer? Was it? Oh,
Oh, it was
it
right.
was Commissioner Heiken second.
Now you two are sounding
I
alike.
know.
That's trouble.
Must be that chair.
Could be.
Commissioner Meyer?
Yes.
Commissioner Heiken?
Yes.
Commissioner Casper?
Yes.
Commissioner Sprague is a yes. Chairman Johnson?
Yes. All right.
Thank you so much for your continued support, and Marcy, been great working with you, Fire Department. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
You're going
Thanks.
to go to the village board, I'm sorry, I can't think of the day off the top of my head, for the special use, but the minor site plan is approved here. It doesn't need to move on. So as soon as you want to submit a permit for the fence and the lighting, you can go ahead and do that.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck, continued, thank you.
All right, next up, we have concept review for plan unit development at 350 East Dundee, Forrest Development LLC. Just a reminder, this is a concept review. It's an opportunity for us to provide comments or suggestions to the petitioner if they decide to move forward with more detailed preliminary plans. Ms. Nyes, anything from you?
No. Dan, your presentation should be on the desktop, and maybe that will magically come up. Oh, there it is.
It's magic.
Great.
Thank you.
Now we just got to get to the right slide. Okay.
There we go. And there's a mouse up there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're good?
Yeah. State your name and business address.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Dan Trippier. I'm here for the applicant. My address is 618 Academy Drive, Unit B in Northbrook, Illinois. It's a pleasure to be before you tonight. This is our presentation for concept consideration for the project at 350 East Dundee. We were before the board on April 3rd. We're very encouraged. I'm sure you saw the minutes or maybe the staff report. We're very encouraged to get some positive feedback on moving forward with the project, and we understand there's still work to be done. But the board seemed to be quite enthusiastic about it, which made us feel good. So you're familiar with the building. It's it's under the current ownership now for the last 16 years, and for the last maybe 5 or 6 years, I would say it's been dark. It's been dark because the market has changed. We're seeing that all over the place, and this site is no exception. So office, or what that original use was, and then office, just is not flying now. So what we're proposing is a mixed use. It's 3 stories, it would be 4 stories. It would be zoned PUD. First floor would be commercial and retail. As you may have read in the minutes, we have an intended commercial user, a healthcare tenant, and then there'd be retail spots also. Floors 2, 3, and 4 would be the residential floors, with 19, 15, and 15 units respectively on each one of those floors. Really luxury apartments. You've seen the presentation, and Anthony Abruzzo, who is our architect, he's going to show you some more in just a minute or two. But that is an adaptive reuse. So one of the questions that we got from the from the board was, does that building come down? No, the building is adapted. We have a rendering of what it could look like if we move forward with this project, and how it would be an attractive building. Another issue that came up was our consultation, I guess you would say, with IDOT. Our engineer, who's not here tonight, but who's working on this project, is consulting with IDOT. And of course, we would tie that up, clean that up before any public hearing and presentation in that regard. The footprint doesn't change, so we're keeping the same footprint. The engineering, as it pertains to the creek, is it a creek or river?
It's a river.
Thank you.
It's a real river.
I don't know where I lost my mind there. We understand that that has to be looked at carefully, and we will look at that carefully. We're not there yet, but we will get there with the village's engineering input on that. But we're, at this part of the process, we're not there yet, but we understand that that's a concern. The other thing that's worth noting is late last year, the board approved the Milwaukee Corridor Study. And we've tried to take concepts from that and lessons from that to offer development that would be consistent with some of the goals and objectives of that study. This particular site is not an identified site on the corridor study, but nearby it is. So we've tried to learn from those objectives and goals to put in a mixed-use building that would be attractive and marketable. So I'm not going to hand it over. Forrest, do you want to talk? Or Anthony, you want to go through this a little bit? You can just advance it with the mouse. I mean, if I can do it, you can do it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dan.
Name and business address, please, for the record.
Anthony Abruzzo, Forza Design and Consulting, 2212 Division Street, Melrose Park.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for taking the time and the opportunity here to speak with you. To further elaborate on some of the things that Dan spoke of, particular to this site. So with the restaurant row corridor and working with staff and them pointing that out to us early on, beginning, I would say relative to about 9 months ago.
You can raise the mic up a little bit too.
Thank you. So several months ago, looking at this restaurant row corridor plan and then really taking that into consideration, our site, as Dana spoke of, as a 3-story office building, a big part of the world today with not only sustainability, but giving homage to a lot of the structures that are there. So our firm has been really successful on a lot of active reuse projects throughout the city of Chicago and metropolitan areas. To further elaborate a little bit more particularly about this project, though, with the conversion of the first floor. So the first floor, majority of that lying along that of the Dundee Road, we plan to introduce roughly 10,000 square foot that could be dedicated to that of retail/restaurant space. With the addition of this retail restaurant space, we're proposing on adding to the facade this canopy element, this metal canopy structure that we think would really enforce here. There we go. we think it would really bring life to this existing facade. So kind of talking about this existing facade and what it is, that being an existing precast concrete building, what we plan to introduce is a new masonry veneer that's going to section and kind of give elements to these existing spaces. We think that this would, really enhance the site, but not only that, the site, but also that of Dundee Road, with consideration of also your village's monument being on the corner and us being around it. To address that a little bit more, we've added additional parking that you could see where once the bank teller side, which is this area, we plan to remap this, make this a parking lot, and then with making this additional parking, bringing in a winding walk road that would have benches and new landscape that would really highlight access from that of Milwaukee Road, and then bringing people through our site into Dundee Road. But then we've also spoke of maybe allotting several spaces that passerbys, picture takers, they could have an actual place to park their car and to, enjoy this beautiful scenic space. So that kind of addresses a little bit of this side of the site. Now, as we go further through, when we originally looked at this project, we were proposing potentially to do possibly another building here adjacent. After further engineering studies and working with our civil engineer, realizing that the actual site itself, that this existing site's approximately 8 to 7 feet below that of what would be considered floodplain. So to bring this up, to bring the site up, and then with bringing the site up, bringing into a lot of detention and infiltration, we got a recent price that would probably cost us to the tune of like $3 million to elevate this roughly like 5 acres. So as a means of reevaluating this project, and again, we have a 3-story structure. The structure is clean, the structure is beautiful, and we really feel that this project that the building could really encapsulate a project with essentially cladding it. So to further describe that, we do have a tenant in the first floor area that will be occupied as a medical tenant. That's 11,000 square foot, and Boris will be able to further speak about that. Lastly, I know site staff gave considerations for that, not only of landscape that of Dundee Road, but I know the sites of Milwaukee, adding additional walkways throughout the site, but then adding around the front of this site, go back to that rendering, the ability to have this restaurant row corridor. So we'll have a new concrete patios that will surround the building that will give the ability to have these seating areas to the outside for not only that of the tenants, but also for the community. So without any further ado, if you guys have questions or to come back for questions, I'd like to hand it off to Boris and to introduce himself.
Good evening. As Dan mentioned, we've been part of this property since 2006. And I'm sorry.
Name and
I'm so sorry. My name is Boris Stradievsky. I represent the developer.
Thank you.
And so, as I mentioned, I think we've been part of the ownership of this property since 2006 when we acquired it. When the village let it go, we acquired it pretty much right after it. And so we've been working with the tenantship in there. It's been dwindling slowly but surely, and it's been vacant for the last, I believe, close to 4 years. So we found several projects that we brought to the village were not up to par. They didn't commit to the fountain issue, because I think everything that we brought in had a commercial component to it, and they required moving of the fountain, and the village was a non-starter. So none of the projects ever came to fruition, and this is the best that we could figure out the use for the property other than demo, and this is a tried and true reuse. It's been done by us in residential commercial buildings, by our partner in many office buildings, hundreds of thousands of square feet of office buildings, and we think we can do a good job on it. And it'll be a great addition to the Eastern Corridor, which currently doesn't really have anything eye-pleasing until you get to the whole intersection, when you got the Walgreens and everything there in the shopping center. So we think we can add to that, because part of the exposure is to Dundee Road. Another issue is the fountain prohibits any commercial development, but since this would be a large property, I think it's very visible, and we would be able to get some retail tenants. And we're dedicating a little less than 10,000 square feet. I believe it's about 6,700 square feet. So we're taking the entire southern portion of the building and dedicating that to the retail. And the center of the property will be leased by a business that's currently is in Arlington Heights and will be moving here. They're about 60-something hundred square feet now, and they'll be enlarging and taking on more doctors for other services. Upstairs, we're envisioning 53 apartments in total, which would be broken between 3 floors. We envision adding to the top floor, I believe, 8,000 square feet, approximately 8,000 square feet. Once we take out the chillers and everything that's in there, you know, it'll be cranes and everything, you know. No other way to take that out of there, because it was put in there before the building was. So I think that, you know, we can make a wonderful addition to the, you know, to the community, and especially staying with the theme of the restaurant row and having some of the retail there available for possible restaurant use because of the terraces that we propose, and we hope that this will entice someone to move into the area as a restaurant operator. That's all I got, unless you got questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll see if we have any concerns there. Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. It's a beautiful rendering, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness in considering, you know, the restaurant corridor and, you know, the beautiful waterfall. I certainly appreciate your comments about the lack of corporate office users these days. It's pretty evident. I'm just curious, how did you, from an architectural standpoint, arrive at 53 units? You mentioned 19, 15, and 15. So I'm just curious, how did you determine that 53 units was the sweet spot?
Well, so let me try to, there we are. All right, so this is essentially floors 2 and 4. As you'll see, the end caps, those will be 2-bedroom units, Beth, and then the central span, due to the column span itself, and essentially that's what we just come up with.
Okay.
So following the column lines and trying to keep continuity, and you know, there's economics in the continuity of it. And then this is the 3rd floor. So another way that we're planning on handling essentially such a large floor plate, our core space, which is very large, since what we've seen during COVID and the way that some of these buildings and even nearby small-end office users. So on the 2nd floor, having the possibility of this area being office flex space, that would be, I would hate to say similar, but it's like a WeWork concept, where
Okay,
you have the
familiar
ability
with
to
it.
rent a desk or really to rent a chair, or, you know, even a small office, have a central conference area, and then to have a good amount of actual on-hand storage for actual people that live there, because we understand that people do have items more than what their unit would necessarily need. So having on-site storage for the tenants is a big part. And then on the 3rd floor, what we were proposing to do is, one, is having a dedicated business center for that of the residents, having a small exercise / gym area, and then having a like a dedicated lounge / informal room, so that people could have parties, and, you know, residents themselves, that they can enjoy the space as a gathering space.
Makes sense.
So.
Makes sense. Thank you so much for walking me through that and giving
Thank
me a
you.
little bit better explanation, because I did see in your packet it mentioned flex spaces, and I was wondering if those were co-working type spaces or not. I'm just curious, why on the fitness? Because, you know, depending how you outfit that fitness center, you know, sometimes there can be noise considerations and that sort of thing, especially if it's on an upper floor. So I'm just curious, why target the 3rd floor for that particular use?
It is a means of using the 2nd floor, the way that the building chops up for security concerns, having like central hallways that would be able to be blocked in like a vestibule, so that for security purposes, so that like people couldn't wander, and necessarily like having like some privacy of like, you know, this is my hallway and just some personal ownership, but then having those amenities that are like really resident restricted on the third floor. And that being of a gym would be more of like ellipticals. I don't think it's going to be like, heavy free weights and
Okay.
things of that nature. But that's something definitely to take into consideration as the items that would be in there.
Okay, and final question I have is just relative to security. Oftentimes residents, may be concerned when there's other commercial uses, especially when there's a co-working and there's more transient people coming in and out. So how have you thought through that particular aspect of your reuse?
Okay, so is means of the existing, what we'll call the rear, that's like opposite of Dundee Road, that would be the central entrance for that of the residential tenants. And in there, we're going to be providing a mail room, a storage room, a bike storage room, and then having our utility rooms, our electrical, like mechanical spaces down below. So that there's a sense of like, there's a sense of security. And again, that is like under key and lock, and that will be under camera. And then as you come up through the building, like through the elevator, or what we'll call like that main core, it's blocked off from the rest of this. And then the entrances all for the retail are going to be dedicated along Dundee. Let me go back. So for the retail, the entrances are here and the parking will be dedicated here.
So one elevator for residential and one
So the residential back here, and then they'll walk over here into this central core, and then they come in.
Okay.
They'll come in through a core, then once they get to the second floor, as a means of the second floor, to access like the hallways to the units, those are to the sides. And then the flex space, so to speak, that's more or less up front. So you would have the ability like as a separate hallway, so like you wouldn't be walking like outside like your door and then like, oh, there's people working. That would feel very
uncomfortable.
Informal. That would not be a cool.
It's actually a separate set of doors from the larger courtyard.
Okay.
To service this, and the residents will be coming in from the parking lot entrance, and this would be a side entrance that's next to the commercial space.
Okay.
And, actually, this time we're considering there's a staircase in there now. We may end up losing a unit and utilize the stair for additional access. It's just a conversation, but
Because the medical access as a means for that medical tenant, then using like this concrete patio here and dedicating that parking to them, so that we have like movement through the site as a means of different hours of night, different hours operation, so that there's good flow. And then another thing that we took staff's consideration on was originally we had more parking along here on Dundee Road, but they considered giving, putting more landscaping and making a nicer sign. So what we did was we introduced like 3 spaces there, 2 dedicated to like a pickup ride share, and then also able for a lot of people do order food to go on these applications. And as a restaurant operator, it could sometimes be a nuisance as a means, but giving them the ability to pick up food, have it warm, as the way a lot of these things were intended.
No, I think that was a really smart, the rideshare pickup areas that you designated, so.
Well, for responsible people, enjoying themselves, within the community, so, and then making it easy for the rideshare, not pulling in other properties, and then, just trying to give some consideration to these things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all for me.
Commissioner Sprague.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. There was concerns from the board about the covered parking. Are you going to look into that?
Yes. So actually, currently, right now, where we sit now, Cliff, our civil engineer, is working on advanced engineering drawings for the site as per our renovations, as per our revision state. With that, we are looking into areas that we could provide some shaded parking, as at least for as a means for the winter time. So we are looking at, and when we come back to the board as a means with something very thought through, ornamental, and to give you something actual. This is what we.
Now, is there any possibility of maybe adding like a covered walkway that would go out to the covered parking?
We could have
from the
sections. I would say we would have sections. We could possibly do sections of covered walkway. I know that we're introducing kind of like a new brick paver pattern to act as like a general pathway or a circulation to like how to get through a space. And then since there is a lot of concrete on site and a lot of asphalt on site, we've given the consideration of using these brick pavers as not the yellow brick road, but to lead you through. And we definitely would give that some further consideration of looking at some additional spaces.
The retention, detention that you're planning around that vacant lot,
So, yes.
do you have any interest in that vacant lot at all? Acquiring that and using it as part of your,
Are you talking about the farm?
the lot that's just
The
to the
farm, that's
east?
that little, yeah, well, I have actually spoken to the owner several times. They want to develop it.
Oh,
I don't know what they could do there because
Okay.
it's underwater, and there's a 10 or a 20-foot easement in the middle of that thing. So I don't know what he's going to do there, but that was his conversation with me. I believe he's a dentist.
I was going to suggest that would make a great
It would have
pocket
been a lot
park.
easier for everyone if we could do that, but unfortunately, he has an idea. He actually called me personally to ask if we were interested in selling him the 2 eastern acres of the parcel, and at that time, we were considering building another building in there. So I said no, because we will need the parking, but once we realized that, just never came back to him. I'll call him and see if he wants to buy it, but, you know, I don't know what he could do there. It's all underwater. It was engineered originally for that part of the parking lot to be underwater.
Thank you. I'd like to encourage the green space, Riverwalk kind of idea from the Restaurant Row Corridor Plan along your east side of the lot there along the river.
Okay.
If maybe you could also incorporate some sitting areas or pathways along there. And then the only other concern I have is that you keep in mind your residents, your neighbors to the north, when you do your landscape plan, sufficient screening or landscaping to mitigate the noise from your parking lot to the residents to the north. Yeah.
We're like literally, you know,
Just keep it in
couple
mind.
acres away from him, you know.
And we plan on putting trees as a means of lighting
Right,
those,
There's
lighting
a-
those areas to really beautify that whole.
There's a lot of
that whole site.
dead ones there now.
So I'm not sure about placing any kind of benches there because that part was designed originally to be underwater. So whatever we place down there may
Yeah.
end up floating somewhere. You know? So I'm just, over the years since we've owned it, we've had a lake in there at one point. You know,
I've seen it.
Yes. So, you know, it's not something I don't think we could do. I mean, we'll look into it, but
Okay.
I don't know. And it's right next to the,
And
you know.
here, as means of like, for like exterior green space and like outdoor space, realizing that it's important, and especially in like mass units like this. So what's really interesting about the site is the existing concrete patio that lies just out here. I mean, the landscape has died, you know, through the years and definitely has been neglected. But this patio itself, like, I think would really serve as a real communal area, not only for that of the residents, but for also people, you know, walking through. We think with the, you know, adding these brick paver areas to bring people off that of Dundee Road and to make them travel in the site, and then the restaurants promoting the site promoting the restaurants, vice versa, and to try to pull. And then in addition to that, offering, you know, we're looking into to really using this space, using this existing green space and trying to come up with ways to highlight it, because we know that it's off Dundee Road, but it's sunk in, and it acts as what we would be considered as like a dry bottom, or like a grass retention, dry bottom retention. So for overflow, you know, it would take on mass amount of water, but then dissipate. So we're looking at ways of really trying to utilize that space for the 2-for-1.
Yeah, I'm trying to encourage the idea of pocket parks along the Milwaukee corridor that the plan suggested. And then the concern about the neighbors to the north, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Heiken.
Yes, thank you. Great plan for it. Good to see something good coming out of there. My only concern is the traffic flow. Heading south, if I'm heading south on Milwaukee, am I going to be going in across that intersection there is really tough. I know you're kind of handcuffed because your entrances are so close to both traffic lights, but I'd hate to see somebody heading south trying to turn into that northern traffic flow, or avenue, whatever you have there. And the same thing with somebody turning left out of the Dundee exit, trying to turn left there. So would you consider doing right in, right out on those?
That's something that we're definitely going to look at with our engineer, and I know with the village engineer.
Okay.
As it means, because right now, our civil engineer is in conversation with IDOT.
Yeah, that would be through IDOT, I'm sure, but.
And then the question came up as a means of, since we're not going to be touching the parkways or anything of that nature, but still getting the proper approval. And I know that the initial conversation that was had was, at a point, the X amount of people for the office, X amount of people for the bank. At one point, the site did have a greater use, so.
And you are handcuffed there, because you can't change any of that.
No, most definitely, but we still want to, acknowledge that these,
Right.
that these issues have at least been, discussed and
Yeah,
and thought
a
through.
safer alternative, I think, would be,
Definitely, definitely.
that's all I have, thank you.
Commissioner Casper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've always been intrigued and enjoyed the concept of repurposing buildings rather than tearing them down, especially older buildings. This rendering, this is stunning, and this is so much better than what's there now. I mean, it's like night and day. Can I presume from this rendering that some of those large overgrown trees, which in some cases almost completely obscure the building, are going to be
Yes.
taken care of? Okay, because I mean, I go by there every day, and sometimes you can't even tell there's a building there.
No, and the visibility now with the structure proposed like this is going to be, I mean, especially at nighttime. I mean, like when
It's stunning.
it's going to be.
The only other question is, I heard you mention 2-bedroom apartments on the corners. What size are all of the apartments going to be? Is it just 2-bedroom?
So the most of the corner units range, I believe, from 1,100 to 950, and then the average, just looking at the column grid, each unit would come out to be, I believe, it's 850 square feet.
So those are 1-bedroom
Yeah,
apartments?
1 bed, 1 bath, living area, kitchen, and then walk-in closet and ample amount of storage, and then of course a nice kitchen. So.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, it's my understanding that this property would have to be rezoned in order to make this happen?
Yes, that would be the first step in the process, to rezone it from commercial to a mixed use.
Okay. What type of retail do you envision moving in there? 'Cause it's
specifically,
not a great in-out condition there.
No, most definitely. But I think today, and especially today, I think in thriving communities like such as Wheeling, and a lot of these communities that we've been doing projects in, that there are a large amount of still opportunity, people that believe in opportunity and that believe in small businesses, and spaces like this like really give that unique opportunity, because at the end of the day, the rates at a lot of these newer commercial developments are really not, they're not able for that mom and pop place. And I'd hate to say as a mom and pop place, but even as a small business, if you're not a national chain, and I think that this would be a great opportunity, because at the end of the day, with the amount of square foot that we are offering, if you were to get realistically 2 different types of like restaurant operators, I think that would fulfill the space, and then getting like an offset tenant such as like a smaller retail, clothing. I mean, it can go from.
So I've been talking to a local jeweler who may be interested in moving into one of the spaces. And then, as I mentioned in the board meeting, I've been fielding calls from one of those cafes. I don't know if we need another one in Wheeling, But I mean, so potentially we have a couple of interested parties. Without really advertising or marketing the space, because it was marketed previously. Just the signage is still there for less, I think, 4 years. It's the same signs, they've never been removed, but we weren't able to rent anything.
And I'm assuming that like unit 102 and 103 could be combined and make something bigger.
And we're hoping that both corners will end up some kind of food service.
Okay.
Because they have the patios available, and there's landscaping. It'll be really attractive landscaping, and we have both corners landscaped. Second corner offers the whole view of the plaza, and we'll landscape that with some lights in there. It'll make it really pretty. So hopefully we'll get a couple of restaurants on both sides.
The intention to show this also is a means of like for the engineering and planning on our end for sprinklers, fire separations, and certain items as a means of plumbing to be able to run enough systems in there because we want to do it once and give the ability for future tenants to have the ability to do.
Now, right now, all of the mechanical stuff is in a rooftop penthouse, right?
Yes, so that will be a complete gut of that penthouse. So when we first took a look at the project, what made it advantageous was the existing penthouse, I believe, is like 8,000 square feet, and it is housing some incredibly insane giant motors and fans and the chiller system and stuff that it's obsolete. I mean, it really is obsolete, but the weight factor. So then we were looking at it, and it's like, Boris came to a point, and he's like, really, to extend the deck a little bit more to fit a unit count that makes it happen, he's like, is it realistic? And I'm like, I want to fight him, and like, no, it's not realistic. And it's like, well, do you know what kind of weight that was once upon a time here? So it did make it realistic, and that was really the internal point that we had to say, like, hey, maybe this project actually does make sense. Without that penthouse, it got into all types of questionable areas. Yeah. And especially with in today's economy, I mean, the cost of construction is elevated. In my instances, probably about 30 to 40% across the board in a year's time, and it's the ability to get devices, to get equipment, units, air units, and it really makes it difficult to try to pull things like this together. But there were so many benefits of this site and benefits to this building. So. Outside. A community roof deck, and then with the ability to have those like penthouse units that we're calling them, they'll have their own private deck areas also. So that would be a really nice touch, and then you could really see some pretty cool views. Yeah.
I would just make sure that around the perimeter of the building, if you do have those decks, you have the appropriate, safety precautions so someone doesn't.
It's all brought in.
Okay.
As a means of definitely, because we'll have, mechanical equipment as a means of like on the outskirts, and that'll be brought in to, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, let's see, we've already talked about the flooding in the parking lot. You're well aware of that. And the covered parking, you're working on that.
Yes.
And working with IDOT and MWRD would be the next steps before you get too far into the planning. I don't think I have anything else. Any other questions from the commission?
Nope.
Nope. All right. Then we are okay with moving on, right? Oh, yes, sir. Come on up.
Most of them can't be answered now because it's in the early schematic stage.
That's true. Come on.
Just two
Step
things
up,
that jump
step up.
to mind.
Step up to the microphone. We have a
Two
huge
things that
audience at home.
come to mind is the parking and how it's going to be divided between the medical and the tenants, okay? And, what's going to control that? It seems like a long way for the tenants to get to parking, to me, and if this is going to be for the baby boomer generation who's getting on in age, and then, handicap. That's all stuff that's going to be handled in the design stage. The one other comment I had is the Des Plaines River Trail's just on the other side of the river. Is there a good way to get from here, a good safe way to get from here over there to get to the river trail?
There is a side.
I can answer that.
I've ridden it, and it's.
The Forest Preserve owns both sides of the river, so they would have to do that.
Okay. I'm just saying, from here, I see a lot of other comments from my design process that they're probably going through and, so on. I guess one other question, did I hear that the second floor was going to be a combination of tenants and the internal section is possibly businesses?
No.
Or
It would be a
second or third, I thought you said.
No, it was a
one of the-
flex space in the middle.
Working flex space.
Yeah, the flex,
Throw your laptop.
but that's for tenants or for other people? Okay. So you would have non-tenants being on the tenant floor?
Very well. But those hallways would be separated as a means of having the ability to get the hallway for the residences versus that office use. It's under another set of laws. It would be under a key fob entry, and the residents would have ability to access it.
I don't need to get into the
Yeah.
details. I'm just bringing up things that pop to my mind. You know, and you're in the early stages, but this is one of the things I excel at, is bringing up all these things during a construction project. I've been involved in design for 40 years. So, you know, I would just have problems if I was a resident having non-residents walking down the same hallway. But if that's not the case, that's not the case, you know. The other things I see are things they'll address.
Yep, they've got a lot of work to do.
You know, I don't know what the village can do to get to the park, you know, to the Cook County Forest Preserve District, you know, to make sure that there's, you know, a way for the residents, if this goes forward, to get across there safely. Because the last time I rode my bike across there, I wasn't thrilled, but it's been a while.
All right, thank you for your comments, sir. All right, so we don't need to vote on anything.
Nope.
So,
Thank you for your direction and your words of encouragement. Yes,
it's
we
a
got some work to do.
beautiful project.
We'll get busy.
I'd love to see that building happen. I really would.
Yeah, if it looks anywhere close to what your rendering looks like, you'll have one nice-looking building.
All right.
Oh, Inspector Nemec, was there, I'm sorry, I forgot you were over there. Was there anything?
No, you know, the building's fully sprinklered as it is right now and has fire alarm system. So the only thing that we would like to see is like maybe one more hydrant added at the north, or the northeast corner. And the water main actually runs that way, an 8-inch water main according to the GIS. So if they could, just so we'd have better coverage around the property, that's what we would probably be looking for.
And obviously, the sprinkler system would need to be modified
Right,
for
exactly.
apartments and, yeah.
And no concerns about having a fourth floor?
No, I mean, the ladder truck will still reach up there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
It has two stairs coming down, so there's plenty of access, off and on. And obviously, the elevators will reach.
All right. Thank you for your presentation. All right, let's see what we got left here. Approval of minutes of the regular meeting of April 12th, 2023, including finding of facts for dockets 2023-15, 2023-13A, 13B, C, D, and E.
So moved.
Second,
Commissioner Sprague is a yes. Commissioner Meyer?
yes?
Commissioner Casper?
I respectfully abstain.
Commissioner Heiken?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes. Other business. Ms. Nyes.
Yes, I wanted to let everyone know that the past couple of weeks, Community Development has been working on a new permitting software. So you guys are used to seeing the docket numbers as like 2023-16 or PC 2305. So starting probably at the next meeting, you'll see different nomenclature being used, like PSC J 2301. And we'll give you a cheat sheet about what those things mean. It's like planning, zoning, site plan, major, or something. So just a heads up, when you see it, it's going to look a little weird.
It'll be harder to notice them in the paper then,
Yeah.
because I'm used to how it's set up. All right, anything else?
No, that's it.
Commissioner Meyer, anything?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Sprague?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Commissioner Casper?
Nothing for me, sir.
Commissioner Heiken?
No, thank you.
All right. Fire Department? Everything good?
Everything's good.
Okay. I'll just mention that the Indian Trails Library is having their used book sale this weekend, Saturday. So go on over and get some bargains. And with that, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I can,
Got it.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.